Now, Bob Arum survived 6 decades, and Eddie Hearn reshaped British boxing. Different generations, same truth. Talent matters, but work ethic, integrity, and timing, that builds empires. So Bob Arum and Eddie Hearn had a discussion about boxing, and these are knowledgeable promoters in the game. So let's analyze the statements, and hopefully we can bring some new perspective and context. So I'm just going to go through these statements / questions. So Arum, as a great survivor, 60 plus years in what he calls himself a terrible sport, yet he's still passionate. So my question with this is, how is he maintained in this game, and why? If it's a terrible sport, why is he maintained in this game? And when he says a terrible sport, what does he mean by that? Is it like tongue in cheek? Is he being figurative? Or is it a terrible sport, but that means it needs more heroic people, and maybe he considers himself as heroic? But he's had 6 decades of success in boxing, which is incredible. And I can only assume that he's achieved that with hard, relentless work. My question would be why? Why does he still do it? Is it purpose? Is it passion? Is it loving the competition? And when we say the competition, promoters, they go up against each other like boxers go up against other boxers. It's the competition is a big thing. And as I've always stated, capitalism and competition, they go hand in hand. Or is it just simply a love of the game, but 6 decades of hard work? That is not just consistency, that's consistency on another level. And then we have the Barry Hearn connection. So you've got Eddie Hearn, the son, and Barry Hearn, the father. And Arum has had a long relationship with Eddie's father. And he spoke about how proud he was of the Joshua fight. So there you have the legacy and the family history with Bob. So let's talk about that fight. The Joshua Klitschko fight, which had 90,000 people in attendance. And people seem to forget that Klitschko was a legend. He reigned for 9 years. He had a great jab, great power. And at that time, he was a very experienced fighter. Yes, probably past his prime. And Emmanuel Stewart had passed away, RIP. And Emmanuel Stewart was a very essential part of the Klitschko's camp. But the point is that AJ was the new world champion. And Klitschko was the former undisputed champion. And it was a legendary night. And what was interesting about this night is that Klitschko is often a very safety-first boxer. But in this fight, he really was explosive. And if I remember correctly, I think the 5th round, Joshua just really engaged and knocked Klitschko down. But then Klitschko used his experience and then knocked Anthony Joshua down in round 6. And then I think Klitschko was starting to get into the fight and starting to dominate the fight. And then AJ took a risk. He took a risk and he got that 11th round stoppage. Tremendous victory for AJ, and what a night. What a great night. So then we got the next statement, which is that Arum never meant to stay in boxing. He entered as a lawyer, became Ali's promoter, and got pulled back by Leonard and Hagler. So it was like the accidental empire story. A few things to say here. Obviously, Muhammad Ali, a tremendous fighter. People forget the fight that he had with Sonny Liston, and I'm referring to the first fight. Sonny Liston was like Mike Tyson in terms of the way he used to intimidate people. And he actually used to spar with George Foreman. I found this out recently. And George Foreman had high praise for Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston was a great champion, underrated champion, which made the Muhammad Ali victory over Sonny Liston so incredible. It was a great performance. If you haven't watched the fight, watch the fight. And then you have Leonard and Hagler. Sugar Ray Leonard, amazing fighter. Hagler, amazing fighter. Both of them were part of the Fantastic Four. So that's to set the table of the people that are being mentioned here. Well, when you talk about the accidental empire, it's kind of like the unintended consequence of passion. So if you're passionate about something and you do it a lot, you can have some unintended positive consequences. It's like if you train a lot, then one of the unintended consequences could be that you lose weight and build muscle, assuming that you're just training for health. So sometimes we do things, or you might be reading a lot, and then the unintended consequence of reading might be, better mental health or greater focus, greater understanding of the world. So what's great about this is that these great fighters, Leonard and Hagler, they drew him back in. So that to me shows that he was passionate about what goes in the ring, not just what happens outside of the ring. And, passion with expertise. Arum has a background in law. So, there are transferable skills when it comes to the politics of boxing, because boxing is about contracts and it's about negotiation. And I actually remember, going back to Sugar Ray Leonard, I remember when Sugar Ray Leonard fought Marvin Hagler. I remember, I didn't watch it live, but I remember rediscovering that fight. And I remember watching that fight, and what a performance. What a performance by Sugar Ray Leonard, because he was the underdog, and it was a great fight and a great moment. And then we go into Hearn's own legacy pitch, talking about Joshua reshaping UK boxing, Katie Taylor legitimising women's boxing, and then the Canelo era. When we talk about AJ, the night against Klitschko was phenomenal, but AJ is a success inside and outside of the ring. He's done so much for boxing, and he's a huge global brand. So he's a huge global brand. He's a huge success story. Anything he attaches himself to, he's someone that many people will look up to. And he came from, what do they call it, humble beginnings. And he's been just a testimony of greatness. He's achieved a lot. People criticize AJ, but the objective truth is that he's a former 2-time heavyweight champion, and that deserves a lot of success. And commercially, he has done well as well, because he's earned a lot of money in the ring and he's earned a lot of money outside of the ring. And people say it's not about money, but yet at the same time, people love to criticize when boxers go broke or allegedly go broke. So it's important not only to create great moments for the fans, but also to handle your finances. And at the time of writing, it looks like AJ has done both. And of course, Katie Taylor has opened doors for female boxing and has given some great events. Was it the trilogy with Serrano? Was a cultural success and an economic success. And that's something that obviously Hearn can be very proud of. And then obviously Canelo, another boxer who has fantastic global reach. He obviously has that Mexican reach, but then he has that global reach. And, he has just grown from strength to strength. And he's a warrior, Canelo. He's a warrior. He didn't have to fight Bivol. He took that fight. That was a risky, risky fight. He didn't have to fight Terence Crawford. He didn't have to fight Floyd Mayweather. He's a throwback. And then they talk about the death of boxing publicity. This is such an interesting thing to talk about, the death of boxing publicity. And Arum speaks about the collapse of newspapers and boxing writers, and basically I can't find a better word here, but the killing of the old promotional machine. And what I say to this is that, the old machine has been somewhat destroyed, but it's been replaced by a new machine. And I guess the question is, first of all, the first thing is to define what's the old machine, what's the new machine. I would say the old machine is more magazine and print. The new machine is like YouTube analysis and, the whole digital era that we have now. But then the other point is, which machine is actually better? Some would argue that the old machine had more credentials, but the old machine also had gatekeeping as well. There's some nostalgia with the old machine as well, especially with the Ring magazine, which is still going. But the Ring magazine was huge back then. You had Boxing Monthly, Boxing Weekly. Hopefully I haven't got those names wrong. And I guess what we can say here is that boxing has changed, but also the world has changed. And then the next thing here is the statement of what makes a special fighter. And both agree that it's a combination of work ethic and raw talent. And, you can make these reference points to Joshua's dedication, massive dedication. And then you had Hagler's toughness. And, you can even look at Floyd Mayweather, a very dedicated athlete. People focus on the consumption element of his brand, but they don't focus on the dedication of his brand, the mastery. I heard stories where he would do like 3 sessions a day. He was so committed. And You know, that level of commitment. When you have elite genetics, which, let's face it, you're either born with it or you're not, and then you mix it with that dedication, then you have a serious package. You really do. And when you speak about dedication, Evander Holyfield, massively dedicated fighter. Some would say the most well-conditioned fighter of all time. But then you look at Rocky Marciano, and I saw something recently that he was an incredibly well-conditioned fighter as well. Like his preparation and his camps were just out of this world. It was an amazing innovation for the time. Like his punch bags were different to everyone else. So I do believe that, you know, talent is important, genetics are important, but work ethic and the desire, the psychological desire, super important. And then they talk about Duran, and it was Arum's favorite to promote. And according to Arum, you know, Duran never took himself seriously and he made everyone laugh. And of course, Roberto Duran is a legend. You know, all great fighters have so much respect for Roberto Duran. And for those who may not have seen footage of Roberto Duran, I urge you to check out Roberto Duran versus Sugar Ray Leonard, the first fight. I believe that was Sugar Ray Leonard's first loss. And Sugar Ray Leonard admitted in hindsight that Roberto Duran really got into his head, and that was a war of attrition. Great fight. And then finally we have Arum's philosophy on losing fighters. And what he states here is that he promotes honesty over coercion. If the contract is fulfilled, wish them well. And this, I guess, is a rare statement of class over greed. And this made me think about how important is integrity. We know that money is important, and many sell their soul for $1. That's the figurative statement. But what is the value of peace? What is the value of treating people correctly? Because that has a value. People remember how you treat them. And remember, we are all mortal. We can't take it with us. And perhaps, and I was thinking about this, perhaps we should define a promoter on how they treat their boxers, not just on how much their boxers make. Maybe it's a combination of both. You know, look at the money is important. Of course it is. It's a capitalist society. But also look at how they treat their boxers. So it's not just courtesy. It's not just about being courteous and being nice. It's about giving good contracts and asking the question, did that promoter create a good culture? Did that promoter did the right things behind the curtain, so to speak? And I think that is so important. Honesty over coercion and having integrity. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community. And that means I'm interested in your thoughts, I'm interested in your perspectives, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, press like, hype, and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.